I used to believe my marriage was built on certainty, steady, even if not always exciting. But certainty is fragile, it cracks quietly, long before anyone sees the pieces. I realized that the night Claire came home late, her smile too bright, her explanation too smooth, and the scent on her clothes unfamiliar enough to make my pulse hitch. It wasn't evidence, just a feeling. But feelings, I've learned, are often the first truth. My name is Ethan Walker, and nothing about me invites chaos. I'm a planner, a problem solver, the type of man who alphabetizes kitchen spices without irony. Claire, however, has always been the opposite, unpredictable, magnetic, someone who lived in motion. She could turn a grocery run into an adventure and an argument into poetry. I married her because she made life feel less like a checklist and more like a story. But lately, she had become a story I couldn't read anymore. We were sitting at dinner, cold pasta, muted conversation, the heavy silence of two people pretending everything was fine when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and a flicker of something crossed her face. Not guilt, not fear. More like anticipation. Then she flipped the phone over, screen down, and continued eating without meeting my eyes. Who was that? I asked gently. No one, she said too quickly. Work stuff. The lie was subtle, but it was a lie nonetheless. I kept eating, but the question pulsed in my mind. Who is she hiding from me, or who is she hiding for? Claire had always been transparent, sometimes painfully so. She could never keep a surprise party secret, let alone a message on her phone. But now there were whispers she didn't share, hours she couldn't explain, and smiles that didn't belong to me. Later that night, while she showered, I stood in the hallway listening to the water run. I felt ridiculous, suspicious, needy, insecure, all things I never thought I'd become. Yet there I was, a grown man, wondering why the woman I loved felt like a stranger wearing her skin. When she stepped out, wrapped in a towel, eyes soft but distant, she said something that unsettled me more than any late-night message. Ethan, can you just trust me? Her voice was gentle, but her posture was defensive. Her words were tender, but her eyes begged me not to look deeper. I nodded, but a truth settled in my chest. I didn't know what she wanted me to trust. And that was the first sign something in our marriage had shifted, something silent, invisible, but undeniably real. As she slipped into bed beside me that night, her back turned, I stared at the ceiling and realized the central conflict of my life had already begun. Claire was hiding something. And whether I liked it or not, I was about to uncover it. The next morning, I woke with the uneasy sense that something had shifted overnight, not between Claire and me, but inside me. Doubt had planted its roots, and no amount of logic could pull them out. She moved around the kitchen with the same practiced grace she always had, humming softly while pouring her coffee, yet I felt like I was watching a version of her I didn't recognize. She caught me staring. What? She asked, her tone light but edged. Nothing. Just tired. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Me too. It was strange how two people could share a roof, a meal, even a life, and still feel worlds apart. The distance between us wasn't measured in footsteps, it was measured in unspoken truths. On my way to work, I tried to rationalize everything. People change. Work stress happens. Couples drift and come back together all the time. Maybe Claire just needed space. Maybe I was imagining the worst. But then I walked into the office and saw Madeline Pierce, our consulting lead, and the contrast between her steady presence and Claire's growing unpredictability hit me harder than I expected. Madeline was deliberate in everything she did, her movements, her words, even the way she greeted people. She noticed details others overlooked. And for reasons I didn't fully understand, she noticed me more than most. You look like you didn't sleep, she said, falling into step beside me. Rough night, I admitted. She glanced at me, a long, perceptive look that made me feel both exposed and strangely at ease. Keeping it to yourself won't make it easier. I almost told her everything right then about Claire's late nights, the evasive smiles, the messages she hid. But confiding in someone else felt like betraying a marriage I wasn't ready to abandon. I'm managing, I said instead. Madeline nodded, though her eyes said she didn't believe me. Just remember, ignoring a problem doesn't make it disappear. It just gives it time to grow teeth. Her voice was calm, but her words burrowed deeper than I wanted them to. Later that day, during a break, I saw Claire's name flash across my phone, followed by the message. Busy today. Don't text. Not talk later. Not love you. Just a boundary large enough to keep me out. A coldness settled over me. She was pushing me away, intentionally or not. And for the first time, I wondered if Claire wasn't just hiding something, maybe she was protecting it. Maybe she was protecting someone. That night, as I sat alone on the couch, scrolling through old photos of us, her laughing in the sun, me holding her too tightly like I feared losing her, even then, I felt the truth tightening around me like a slow-closing fist. Whatever was happening, whatever she was running toward, it was already underway. And I wasn't sure I was prepared for the moment it finally revealed itself. The following week unfolded with small, unsettling moments, each insignificant on its own, yet collectively shaping a pattern I could no longer ignore. Claire became more elusive, her explanations thinner, her warmth uneven. It wasn't the distance that unnerved me, it was the sense that she no longer realized she was drifting away. On Wednesday evening, she claimed she had a late team meeting. I nodded, pretending the lie didn't sting, pretending I didn't already know her office never scheduled meetings past 6. She kissed my cheek before leaving, but the gesture felt rehearsed, like an actor performing a role she no longer believed in. I watched her drive away, my hands resting uselessly at my sides. I told myself to stop spiraling, to stop searching for meaning in every pause and half-smile. But doubt is a patient architect. It builds quietly, brick by brick, until you're staring at a wall taller than you remember. At work the next morning, Madeline noticed my distraction immediately. Another long night, she asked, handing me a folder. Something like that. She leaned against my desk, arms folded, her expression thoughtful. You know, you can talk to me. Not as your superior, just as someone who's good at reading people. I hesitated. She wasn't wrong. Madeline could read between words with unnerving accuracy, and part of me longed for anyone, to listen without judgment. It's Claire, I admitted quietly. She's been different. Distant. Madeline didn't react with surprise, only a slow nod. Has she given you a reason to be concerned? Yes. The word came out before I could soften it. What are you going to do about it? She asked. I gave a humorless laugh. I wish I knew. She studied me a moment longer, then said something that landed heavier than she intended. Sometimes the truth doesn't hide, it waits for you to finally look straight at it. I carried her words with me the rest of the day, replaying them as if they held a secret I wasn't ready to face. By the time I reached home that evening, I'd convinced myself I needed answers, real ones, not the vague reassurances Claire had been feeding me. The house was quiet when I stepped inside. Too quiet. Her car was in the driveway, but she wasn't in the living room, or the kitchen, or the bedroom. Claire! I called out. No response. I found her in the guest room, sitting on the floor, her back against the bed frame, her phone pressed tightly in her hand. She looked startled when she saw me, like she'd been caught in a moment meant to stay hidden. What are you doing in here? I asked. She swallowed, her fingers curling protectively around her phone. Just thinking. I didn't believe her, and she knew it. For a full 10 seconds, we stared at each other, her eyes pleading, mine searching. It was the most honest silence we'd shared in weeks. And then, without warning, her phone vibrated. She flinched. I didn't know who was on the other end. But I knew, finally, undeniably, that whoever it was, they were the reason everything was unraveling. Evelyn woke before sunrise, long before her alarm, startled by a quiet unease she couldn't name. For a moment, she simply lay still, listening to the soft hum of the motel's aging air conditioner and the distant rumble of trucks passing along the highway. The world outside was calm, but something about the silence inside the room felt unnaturally heavy, like the air was waiting for her to move. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Noah, who was still sleeping on the other side of the room, one arm hanging off the mattress. He had always slept like he trusted the world around him. Evelyn envied that. Ever since they'd arrived at the motel, her nerves had been wired too tightly to rest. She crossed the room quietly, the floorboards creaking beneath her feet. As she approached the window, She noticed the curtains had been slightly shifted from the way she left them last night. Not enough for someone to call it strange, but enough for Evelyn to feel it. Last night, she had pulled them completely shut. Now, a thin beam of early morning light sliced through a narrow gap, illuminating the dusty air. She pushed the curtain aside and peered out. The parking lot was almost empty, but not entirely. A dark sedan, one she didn't remember from the night before, sat parked 2 spaces away from their SUV. The windows were tinted far darker than anything legal. And though the engine was off, something about the car felt watchful, as if it were more than a machine. Evelyn's hands tightened around the curtain. Noah shifted behind her. "You're up early," he mumbled, voice rough from sleep. She turned, attempting a smile she didn't quite feel. "Couldn't sleep." He sat up slowly, blinking as the morning light reached him. "Nightmare?" "Not exactly." She paused. "Just a feeling." Noah watched her for a long moment, the sleep fading from his eyes. "Is it about yesterday?" "Maybe," she said, though she wasn't sure. Yesterday had been chaotic enough, the breakdown, the tension with the motel manager, the strange flicker of recognition in his eyes when he saw Noah. But this unease felt different. Closer. More immediate. Noah stood and joined her at the window. When he spotted the sedan, his expression sharpened. That wasn't there last night. Evelyn felt her breath catch. Hearing him say it made everything real. "Do you think it's connected?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," Noah replied. "But we should be careful." A knock sounded at their door, soft, polite, but unmistakably deliberate. The 2 siblings froze. Another knock. This time slightly firmer. Evelyn's heartbeat thundered in her ears. The sedan. The curtains. The unease. None of it had been in her head. Noah moved toward the door with cautious steps, lowering his voice. "Stay behind me." The knocking stopped. A silence stretched across the room, tense, electric, expectant. Then a voice spoke through the door, calm and unfamiliar. "Evelyn and Noah, we need to talk." The siblings exchanged a look. Fear, determination, and a dawning realization that their situation was far more complicated than they had imagined. Evelyn swallowed hard. "Who are you?" she called out. But the voice answered only with 3 chilling words. "You're in danger." For a long moment, neither Evelyn nor Noah moved. The motel room felt smaller now, the walls pressing closer as the stranger's warning settled between them like a shadow they couldn't ignore. Noah edged closer to the door, but not enough to unlock it. "Who sent you?" he asked, firm but cautious. His voice was steady, though Evelyn could see the tension tightening his shoulders. A quiet breath came from the other side. "I'm not here to hurt you. But if you don't open this door, someone else will. And they won't knock first." Evelyn's pulse skittered. She approached Noah, lowering her voice. "We can't just open the door. We don't know who he is." "I know," Noah replied. "But he knows our names. And he sounds like he expects someone worse to show up." The stranger spoke again, urgency creeping into his tone. "You don't have much time. The people looking for you left the highway 20 minutes ago. They're tracking your vehicle. Once they find it, they'll find you." Evelyn felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. "Tracking our SUV? Not legally," the stranger said. "But effectively." Noah glanced back at Evelyn. There was no panic in his expression, just the sharp, focused resolve he always found when danger pushed too close. "We need answers," he whispered. "And we can't get them hiding in here." Before Evelyn could argue, Noah cracked the door open, keeping the chain lock in place. The stranger leaned in just enough for them to see one eye calm, alert, scanning. A man in his early 40s, with a trimmed beard and the kind of presence that came from years of staying alive in dangerous situations. "My name is Marcus Hale," he said quietly. "And whether you trust me or not, you need to leave this motel. Now." Evelyn stepped closer, gripping the doorframe. "Why us? We didn't do anything." Marcus hesitated, as if weighing how much truth to reveal. "You didn't. But someone connected to you did. And the people coming don't care about the difference." A cold, hollow feeling settled in Evelyn's chest. She thought of their mother, of the secrets she never explained, of the fear she tried so desperately to hide. Pieces she never understood began to align in ways she wished they didn't. Noah exhaled slowly. "If we leave, are you coming with us?" Marcus nodded. "If you want to survive the next hour, yes." Before Noah could respond, the distant crunch of tires on gravel broke through the silence. Evelyn turned toward the window and froze. 2 black SUVs were pulling into the parking lot, the kind driven by people who didn't need badges to justify what they did. Marcus tensed. "They're early." Noah shut the door fully, removing the chain. "Evelyn, grab your bag. We're leaving." Evelyn didn't argue. She snatched her backpack, her heartbeat pounding like a warning drum. Marcus stepped back, motioning them toward him. "Stay behind me. And whatever happens, don't stop moving." As they slipped out into the cold morning air, Evelyn felt the world shift again, this time with the terrifying clarity that their ordinary lives were gone. And something far darker was closing in. The morning air hit them like a slap, cold, sharp, and heavy with the tension of what waited beyond the motel walls. Evelyn kept pace behind Marcus, her steps quick, her breaths shallow. Noah stayed close beside her, scanning the parking lot as if expecting danger to materialize from the shadows. In a way, it already had. The black SUVs had stopped near the far end of the lot. Their engines remained running, the low rumble vibrating across the pavement. The tinted windows didn't reveal faces, but Evelyn could feel eyes on them, calculating, patient, and unhurried. Predators that believed their prey had no chance of escape. Marcus stopped a few feet from his own vehicle, a weathered grey truck that looked unremarkable enough not to draw attention. "Get in," he said, opening the back door for Evelyn and Noah. "Keep your heads down. Don't look at them, and don't give them a reason to start early." Evelyn slid into the seat, her hands trembling despite her efforts to stay composed. Noah followed, his jaw clenched, his eyes sharp with protective focus. Once they were inside, Marcus slammed his door shut, started the engine, and pulled out from the parking space with a calmness that felt unnatural given the circumstances. "They're watching us," Noah murmured under his breath. "They're waiting for confirmation," Marcus replied. "They want to be sure you're worth the trouble. That's the only reason they haven't boxed us in." Evelyn leaned forward slightly. "Worth the trouble for what? We don't know anything. We're just—" "You're not just anything," Marcus cut in, though his tone wasn't unkind. "Someone wants the two of you for leverage. And if they get their hands on you, that leverage becomes deadly." Noah pressed his forehead against the window, watching the SUVs in the rearview mirror. "So what's your role in all this? Why help us?" Marcus hesitated. "Because I owe someone a debt," he said finally. "And they asked me to protect you." Evelyn swallowed hard. She didn't need Marcus to say the name. She already knew. Their mother had always been a mystery wrapped in gentle smiles and half-truths. Whatever life she lived before them had shadows deep enough to stretch into the present. The truck turned onto the highway, merging with the sparse morning traffic. Behind them, the black SUVs pulled out too quiet, synchronized, a caravan of silent threat. "They're following," Evelyn whispered. "They were always going to," Marcus replied. "The question is whether we can stay ahead long enough to reach the safe point." "And what happens there?" Noah asked. Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. "There, you'll learn why they want you. And what your mother was trying to keep buried." A chill swept through Evelyn, not from the cold, but from the dawning truth that everything in their lives had been built on a foundation she had never seen. Suddenly, Marcus's eyes flicked to the mirror. "Hold on," he warned. One of the SUVs changed lanes, closing the distance fast. The chase had begun.